Welcome to today's edition of Daytime Dialogues. It's a great privilege and an honor to welcome Rabbi Yaakov Glasser. Rabbi Glasser holds many different positions, but two very, very important ones for us. And that is, he's the Rav of a dynamic shul in Passaic Clifton, the Young Israel of Passaic Clifton. And also he is the David Mitzner Dean of the Center for the Jewish Future and University Life at Yeshiva University. Rabbi Glasser is not unknown to Congregation KNS. We've had the privilege to host him. We've had the privilege to learn from him, and I thank him very much today for joining us. Rabbi, thank you. It's great to see you.
It's a pleasure, and it's an honor.
So, Rabbi, you grew up in LA, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Very much so. Yeah.
So how did an LA boy end up in New York, or actually even worse, Passaic Clifton?
Yeah, an LA boy ends up in New Jersey because sometimes Hashem does things to us that we don't understand. But we accept as the truth is. How'd I end up in New Jersey? I always tell people that if you would have asked myself and my siblings when we were in high school living in Los Angeles to rank the states in order of where we think we would end up all living when we got older, I think New Jersey would have been like 54, like after Guantanamo Bay or after whatever. But the truth is, how did I get to New Jersey? Because I made my way to YU. I left Los Angeles actually at 16 to go to Eretz Yisrael. I was there for 2 years, and then I made my way to YU, where I fell in love with Yeshiva University and its Rabbeim and its learning and its chevra and its environment and its value system. And I was there for about 10 years to do college and smicha and kollel and post kollel and kollel post kollel. And then an opportunity came up for a shul that was on the smaller side in Passaic Clifton. That summer, we had a lot of friends who were also living in the Heights that were moving to Passaic just for themselves. So we figured we'd give it a shot. And at the time, I was also the regional director of NCSY in New Jersey. And so we moved to the shul. And, I remember at the interview Shabbos, I remember who it was. This woman stood up and she said, "You're not really committed to staying here. You're just using this as a stepstone to go somewhere else." And I remember looking around like this building that was in tremendous need of inspirational architectural growth, and thinking to myself, like, halavai, I should stay here for 3 years and see it that way. And the truth is, we developed so many amazing relationships with so many incredible people, and together with an amazing team of lay leaders, we built a shul. We built a building. We built a presence in the community, a presence that I think contributes beautifully to the energy and inspiration of the community. And it's become home, and it has become home, or at least a stop, until Eretz Yisrael. But we still try to go to warm climates as much as possible. I have to admit that.
So we invite you to Chicago, where the sun is out today. The 13 inches of snow from a couple of days ago have melted down to about 12 and a half inches. It's really a beautiful place.
Yeah, Chicago. I've had the zechus of being in Chicago for some of the winter treat that is your city. And I'll tell you that as cold as it is, the fact that you have so many amazing Torah personalities, so many amazing community members, so engaged in such a profound way, there's a flavor to Chicago that's amazing. And let's be honest, you have probably some of the best restaurants in North America. So I don't think you have to worry about the cold keeping people out of Chicago.
So just to move over to your other hat, the Yeshiva University hat as the Dean of the Center for the Jewish Future, which continues to morph into new projects and new lives. We're in a real complicated time. So what's the future for all of us? What do you see changing?
What do we see changing? So look, I think we're all taking a breath of communal introspection on many levels, on an individual level, on a familial level, on an institutional level. I think that it is just remarkable and outstanding the degree to which I would say that, a year and a half ago, the average Shabbos table of the modern Orthodox family in North America was somewhat cynical about institutions. That's just the reality. And I think we have all watched those institutions pivot in such a remarkable way to address the needs of the community, to reorient and reprioritize what they're deploying to the community. And it's been amazing to be a part of that, from the Center for the Jewish Future. So our mission in terms of communal engagement was always to project the scholarship, the values, the faculty, the Rosh Yeshiva, the scholars of YU into the community. That usually meant going places, going all over the country, setting up different programs. One of our greatest and most treasured affiliates is, of course, the Chicago YU Kolo, YU Torah Mitzion Kolo, which I know takes place in your school. And this was what it was. We were a physical presence in the community. So we have shifted to an enormous amount of online programming. It's been a chance to project out different aspects of YU that I think have not had the podium the same way, because the community's primary platform to engage a scholar is usually a synagogue and usually a drasha at the synagogue. And a little bit scholar in residences, of course, as well. That to some extent sometimes limits, who could get out there, because there's a certain celebrity type attraction that people are looking for. I think in our online world, it's given us a chance to get people out there who have not had that platform in the past, and we've been, amazed at how well it's been received. In the other part of what we do, which is really supporting the Rabbanim in the field, so that has entirely shifted to supporting them through all of the challenges that they're facing in COVID. Everything from, organizing pretty much all of Mechiras Chametz for North America. I mean, I know there was also in Chicago a very big Mechiras Chametz, so we had a very big chilek in that starting from last year, to all sorts of programs that are taking place constantly to help Rabbanim address issues of mental health, creative programming, educational programming, how to deal with some of the challenges that their constituents are relating to, and really to support them, because as many have pointed out, we've really never had a crisis that has affected the leaders personally as much as the constituents that they are expected to support. So that balance has been a tremendous challenge for many, and so we're focused very much on providing that support. It's been an amazing journey.
So it's interesting, because one of the things that I've been wondering about is, it used to be, we would say even in politics, all politics is local. And so what happens with our aldermen, or what happens with a precinct captain, which was the smaller level of the political structure in Chicago, was always the beginning of everyone's engagement with a party or things like that. Shuls used to be local. But now, I was just told the story of a member of another shul, not Kayanis, in Chicago, who gave up his membership during COVID. And he said, I'm serviced by all of these shuls around the world. I can pick whichever shiurim I like the best. I can go on whoever's Zooming and I want the most. No one turns me away anyways. I have all of these things that are decentralized. Why do I have to be part and say I am a member of Shul X? I can be a member of everyone. In fact, we all know one of our dear friends just opened up a global effort about his shul and is raising money, globally.
Yeah,
and he does great work.
Yeah.
And so, is it really good that yeshiva or Shul X or Y is taking this approach as opposed to working within the individual institutions?
So that's a great question. So first of all, that's definitely a phenomenon that is happening. I was telling Rabbi Goldberg a story that I give a shir on Wednesday nights for many, many years. And so I continue to do so on Zoom. And there was one night that I finished my shir and I walk upstairs in my home, and my whole family is crowded around the computer watching behind the bima. So yeah, it's amazing. People are doing amazing stuff. Look, I would say two things. I would actually say three things. Number one, rabbis have to accept, and I'm going to say it from two different sides of the coin. Rabbis have to accept the reality that the world is evolving. The world is evolving. The world is globalizing. Information is not the privilege of the elite the way it was. And the reality is that whether it's other rabbis, whether it's national institutions, whether it is other organizations that create boutique, presentations for particular, approaches to things, that's just a reality of the world within which we live. And what I always share with Rabbanim, and I say this to myself, I'm also facing this challenge, without a question. I'm also facing this challenge. Why should my shul come to my Yom Ha'atzmaut program and listen to Yaakov Glasser talk about the independence of Israel when they could go to, the Mizrahi program and hear Rabbi Lau and Rabbi Frankel and all these other, superheroes of the Jewish world. So I'm also struggling with this. I think that number one, we have to accept that the globalization of connectivity and the democratization of information was always eventually going to catch up to us. And by the way, it catches up to the institutions also. We used to be able to get a huge crowd at YU, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, just by putting a Rosh Hashiva up to speak in Washington Heights. We now have a website called yutorah.org that has over 200,000 shiurim. And guess what? For our own audience, we've competed with ourselves. And that's just an inevitable reality that we have to contend with. But the answer to that is not to look at the situation and say, okay, so let's fight for the territory and the real estate and the question we have to ask ourselves is, what are the elements of the local experience that really are irreplaceable by national institutions? And there are many. They are not felt as poignantly during COVID because we're not all sharing the same space. But I have relayed this even to my colleagues at YU. I tell them, right now, your Zoom, because people like to say, oh, everything's changed forever. People are just going to be on these Zoom programs forever. I keep telling people that right now, you're just competing with other Zoom programs. But what's going to happen is, please God, in a year from now, the person in their house will have a choice. They could go to kids, see their friends, be in their presence, schmooze with them before and afterwards, have a sense of chevra, reconnect with people, and hear a speaker, or they could sit in their bedroom in their pajamas and watch your Zoom. And once the competition becomes between what's essentially purely substance and not so much of an experience and a more immersive reality, I think that we will discover that that has a tremendous pull, much more than people think. What's going to fall on the Rabbanim is to, and on all the institutions, is to really elevate the quality of these experiences so that they are transcendent in a manner that is not replicable online. And I absolutely believe that we can do that. I absolutely believe that the human factor is so critical. And I don't think we should miss that point of COVID, that maybe people's intellectual needs are being satisfied online, but their human needs are very much not. And you and I know that because we're dealing with so many people that are struggling so much because of that deprivation. So I do think that, that's going to fall on us. And the last point I just want to make, and I tell this to the Rabbanim all the time.
Before you get there,
Please.
No, I just want to give me an example of that transcendent experience that, let's say, is somehow related to Parshat HaShavua, a She'ur in Parshat HaShavua. Or are we saying we're moving away from She'urim and we're going more towards experiences and programming that are Ben Adam L'Chavero, more than Torah-based?
I think some of it depends on what type of things you're doing. I still think that you want to be their teacher of Torah. But I believe that it's going to have to be more than just giving them content, because content is going to be available somewhere else. I mean, the truth is, my children go to school and they could get most of the content on Khan Academy. It's also available somewhere else. But what they can't get is, first of all, to think about when we give shiurim, to think about the contextualization of the content to the particular group of people we're speaking to their environment, the personalization of it, which people connect to think about how it could be framed in such a way that it is cutting edge. It's responsive and reactive to things that are actually going on in people's lives, as opposed to very often these bigger, more national Zoom programs, which are more following a calendar that needs to be prepared well in advance. And therefore, somewhat, a shul, a community, a localized context could be much more versatile in terms of its ability to kind of respond and react, more mom and pop in terms of its, I think, thinking about the way in which shiurim are more interactive, the way in which we begin to look at adult education in shul as an opportunity to help people develop skills, to help people think differently, to personalize the experience. So attending a shiur is not just collecting information, which they could frankly get anywhere, even before COVID, but certainly now. But attending a shiur is an experience that has been framed for me. The rabbi, even simple things like using people's names as you interact with people in the shiur, throwing out questions and asking for responses, doing review sessions, having WhatsApp groups. I have this now with some of my shiurim, WhatsApp groups of the shiur, posting things on those groups in between, and even sometimes late sanas, even sometimes a little joke here and there, not like videos and memes, but like something that relates to what we're talking about or what we're thinking, creating human connection through the vehicle of Talmud Torah, and having Talmud Torah mean more than just information. And I think it will challenge our creativity. I do. I think it will challenge our creativity. But the answer is not to tell all the national organizations not to do programs, but I think the answer is to figure out where do the resources make the most sense. Now, I will say this: we have tried also to use some of what we're doing as accelerators for local programs. So, for example, we will create like a Yomiyun, and then we'll come to, let's say, a local shul and say, you own this Yomiyun, and we will customize the flyer for you so that the first shiur of the Yomiyun is the rabbi of the local shul. And you put your logo on it and your whatever. And so now, instead of us competing with the shul program, now we've been able to, amplify the shul program as almost a service to the shul and to the Rav. But I think that's basically where it's at.
I cut you off. You were saying you were telling something to Rabbonim, and I don't know.
Yeah, the one thing I think we should understand, and I'm not sure I should say this so publicly, but and I say this to the Rabbonim because people are concerned about this. It's true that these large programs attract a significant number of people. However, the percentage of people they are attracting from the constituency that they are targeting is extremely small. Even if thousands of people come to a YU program or an OU program, which is a huge success, again, let's remember who the target audience is. The target audience is world YU modern Orthodox Jewry. When local shuls run a program and it's well prepared, it's put together, and it's creative and it's engaging, they get a far higher percentage of their constituency attending their program, even if the program is not as glitzy as one of these international programs. And I believe the reason for that is because people do want to feel connected to each other and to their space and to their shul and to their Rav. It's just, we're in a new marketplace and we have to adapt and learn how to do things differently.
So before we went live, we were talking a little bit about the experience of being a rabbi and learning how to do Facebook Live, which is being broadcast on, and the Zoom. And then I uploaded onto YouTube and all of the other experiences that we've had. And you mentioned there were some fun hot mic moments you've had.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, at the very beginning of this. So when we were all kind of learning this technology, and it was amazing. Like, I don't know, like half the Rabbit had AOL accounts. It was like totally out of control. What we had to do. It was like, you know, Wi-Fi and Zoom and Facebook and learn all this stuff. Um, so I don't know if I should share this in public, but we were running actually a fairly, it's just me and you,
By the
right?
way, if it's national, it's a small percentage of the total number of people out there.
Yeah, sure. Nothing's ever gone wrong with a rabbi going on the internet without. So I'll tell you what happened. Just between me, you, and whoever's friends with you on Facebook. So we were running at the very beginning, we were running a program for YU Connects, and it was all about dating during COVID, and that's a whole nother topic that's been really interesting. YU Connects is part of our orbit, and dating and engagements during COVID were tremendously up. And there's a whole discussion of why that would be so, which was a little counterintuitive to everyone. And so people were looking for advice about how to do it and how to handle it and what to do, and progressing relationships when people couldn't really be together so much and families couldn't come together. A lot of issues. So we were running a panel, and it had Rabbi Willig and Dr. Glatt and Rabbi Sobolovsky, and a real hush of a panel. And I was the moderator. So I moderated the whole thing, and the program ended. And I guess I hadn't shut off the Zoom because my phone rang. And this is when, I'm sure you remember, when we were all on lockdown, we were just going from thing to thing to thing to thing. Like your brain like never stopped and you never left your study. And so I pick up the phone, and I was doing 5 things while I was on the phone. So I put it on speaker, and it's Rabbi Sobolovsky, and she's like, "Thank you so much. It was great. The program was great. I think you did a good job moderating it." And I said to her, I was like, "I don't understand the problem. Like, why can't they just all get married? We all met our wives in NCSY. Like, what's the big deal? Why is everybody?" And my phone is buzzing from somebody who was on the panel. You're on the Zoom. Stop talking. And finally, I look at the thing, and there were like 180 people still, because this is also when people didn't leave Zoom so quickly and shut them down. Everyone was craving the personal contact, and so since then I've tried to be careful, but I've had a couple of faux pas. But you know what? It's adapting to a new reality, and it is our new reality, and it's our job to, this is why we say that the Torah, it's this week's Parsha, right? The Torah, the Aron is built in such a way that the Badim never leave. And the Badim never leave the arms, the poles that carry the Lo Yasuru Mimenu, whole discussion, if that's a lav, what exactly, is the consequences of that. But Lamaisa, those poles, those portable poles, which are really just there for transport, were fixed in a manner that was permanent. And the Mefarshim say, why is that so? That seems to compromise kind of the dignity and elegance of the Aron. It would look much more beautiful without the poles, just as a standing, more symmetrical, square. And the answer is because Torah is intended to always be portable. Torah can be brought into every generation and every context and every reality. And that's our job. And Ashreinu, that, we thought we were just going to be the rabbis of a generation that just was a generation of Hamshacha, where we just had to kind of keep it going while everyone, figured out how to pay for it. And Ashreinu, that we have a new challenge. And our challenge is to figure out how to move the Aron to the next phase of Jewish history. And as Hashem, we have amazing people and we have amazing mentors. I hope everyone watching this understands that Rabbi Matenki is a mentor to myself, one that I look up to tremendously, and one that I've learned from tremendously, and is really a standing inspiration to many, many Rabbanim. So we're going to do this. We don't have a choice. We're going to do this.
No, we're going to do it, and it's going to be real interesting coming out of this, trying to get people to move. I heard a very good line. We should never talk about going back. We're going next. And going into that next future is what's really challenging. And you're you're right at that perfect crossroads of how to help us, because you have both those programs that were created and the programs that are going to be created. And that's why we look towards you, Rabbi. Um,
Well,
I appreciate the compliments before,
on the
but
shoulders of giants.
there are many giants who you get to work with, Baruch Hashem. But let me just one last little question about it, and that is in terms of, this may come as a surprise to the people who are watching from Chicago, but a lot of people consider Chicago to be an out-of-town city. I always thought New York was out of town, but apparently Chicago is considered out of town. And what's one of the interesting drivers we have is to get some of that out of town, the people from in town to come back to out of town. That Orthodox Jews today seem to go towards centers. It's no longer that we're going to have Manitowoc, Wisconsin, with an Orthodox shul, or all of the other small towns. And sometimes that happens also with the middle-sized towns like Chicago. Is this something that's on the agenda as well with the Center for the Jewish Future, with your thinking?
I think so. I think I think that part of Yeshiva University's goal in graduating thousands of young people into the community is for them to understand, and I think this has been a big shift in terms of focus a little bit, is for them to understand the values-driven nature of what we're trying to teach them, and to try to work on this sense of priorities of needing everything, which is a lot where this phenomenon comes from. The notion that you can only set up shop for your family in a place that has all of the amenities imaginable and is a 40-minute drive, not a 30-minute drive from your in-laws, and that, that kind of, that has been a product of the community's success, let's be honest, success materially and success even spiritually in creating so many centers of real, thriving and vibrant Torah spaces and schools and institutions. But it's not really sustainable for everybody. And even for the people for whom it is sustainable, there are many aspects of kind of moving beyond those spaces that would make their lives much more enriching and much more meaningful. And I think that is something that we're focused on. And I think supporting the Rabbanim in these communities and supporting the shuls in these communities. And, I would even venture to say that in our rabbinic programming, we do now a lot of webinars, a lot of courses, a lot of work. I would say that, ironically, the majority of those participating are not from New York area shuls. A lot of the people participating are from outside the New York metropolitan area. And I think a lot of that has to do with it. It's a chance for us to help edify those institutions. But I think it has to work from both angles. It's about the leadership in the institutions and the communities, but it's also about the value system of the young people as they move forward. I mean, I've always found that Chicago did attract a lot of its kids back. I remember we led a tour of YU students to Berlin a number of years ago. And I remember meeting somebody in Berlin, Germany, who was telling me how great it is, and he's in Berlin, and he's involved in the community, and he's teaching Torah, and it's amazing. And then he introduced me to his wife, and I said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "Chicago." And I looked at the guy and I said, "I'm telling you, in 2 years, you're going to be in Chicago." And he looked at me like I was from Mars, like we're sitting in Germany. And
You're right, it is. Chicago, thank God, has that. But one of the things, and unfortunately our time is up, but I just have to say l'shvach, to praise Yeshiva University, is that your center was the source of so many wonderful things that strengthened Balabatim, all in the smaller communities and in larger communities. I still remember fondly the Champions Gate conferences that used to take place. And maybe one day they'll be happening again, but that training of lay leadership and of Rabbanim It's really what makes your center so very, very important to us. I thank you, Rabbi Glasser, for joining us.
I
It is
thank
a
you. Thank you
pleasure.
for having me. And thank you. We have so many great partners in Chicago, yourself and all of our rabbinic alumni and Rabbi Brand and his Kollel and everybody. And we feel a connection, and I can't wait. I can't wait
I look
to be able
forward
to come back.
I look forward to having you here, and we'll either pick shallots or Kens, whatever you prefer.
It's all good.
We
It's
got a
all
meal together.
literally all good. Who says I can't come for long enough to do both? You know?
Oh, now we're talking. Then we'll throw in Romanian in between.
Exactly. Basically, you're just flashing from the moment you get off the
That's the
plane in
goal.
Chicago till when you leave, and then
So thank you so very much, Rabbi, and I appreciate your
pleasure.
time, and I thank you for all that you do.
It's a
Have
pleasure.
wonderful
Thank you for
day.
this class. Thank you. Thank you.